a reminder that we are going to have a march for justice for George Floyd and all victims of police brutality on Tuesday, June 30th, 11 o'clock a.m. We're going to meet on the steps of the Statehouse Annex in Trenton, New Jersey. The address of the Statehouse Annex is 145 West State Street in Trenton, New Jersey. So we're going to rally at the Statehouse Annex. The Statehouse Annex is right next to the State House, but we cannot rally at the State House because the State House is under construction and rehabilitation, and it really needs the work. So the annex is literally right next to the State House. So we will be meeting on Tuesday, June 30th, 11 a.m. on the steps of the Statehouse Annex, 145 West State Street in Trenton, New Jersey. And then, if all goes according to plan, we will march from the Statehouse Annex to the Richard J. Hughes Justice Complex in Trenton, New Jersey. That's the Richard J. Hughes Justice Complex, which is 25 West Market Street in Trenton, New Jersey. So we're rallying on the steps of the Statehouse Annex because we want to make our demands known to the state government. But we are also going to the Richard J. Hughes Justice Complex because that is where the chambers of the New Jersey State Supreme Court are located. And the New Jersey State Supreme Court is taking up a very important precedent-setting case relating to the attempts by the city of Newark to establish a police review board with subpoena power and investigatory power. For half a century, the people of Newark had demanded a police review board. Then in 2014, the newly elected mayor of Newark, Ras Baraka, issued an executive order establishing the police review board that is actually called, the formal name is the Civilian Complaint Review Board. And it is, in fact, a police review board. So the city of Newark established a CCRB. The mayor did it through an executive order, and then the city council ratified it with an ordinance, which made it permanent, lasting past the term of the current mayor. And then the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge Number 12, located in Newark, New Jersey, filed an injunction in State Superior Court to block the Police Review Board, or the CCRB, as it is called in Newark. And so the Fraternal Order of Police actually won their case at the Superior Court level, but then the city of Newark appealed, and the city of Newark won the case on appeal in State Appeals Court. But the Fraternal Order of Police determined that there would be no civilian oversight of the police in Newark, New Jersey, filed in the New Jersey State Supreme Court. The oral arguments were heard in the beginning of May. And since then, the court has been deliberating on this case. So when we come to Trenton on Tuesday to demand justice for George Floyd, justice for all the victims of police brutality across the country, and especially here in New Jersey, and an end to police brutality, we're also going to march to the state Supreme Court to make our voices heard and to let the court know that we want the state Supreme Court of New Jersey to uphold the appeals court decision in this case. The appeals court has ruled and said the city of Newark could establish a police review board with subpoena power and investigatory power. So we're demanding that the New Jersey State Supreme Court uphold that decision. So it is my hope that all the people who have marched over the past month, and tens of thousands, perhaps, well, we know for a fact that in 350 cities and towns in all 50 states of the United States, there have been demonstrations demanding justice for George Floyd and an end to police brutality. Here in New Jersey, since the murder of George Floyd a month ago, more than 150 cities and towns have had demonstrations to demand justice for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and other victims of police brutality. This has been an amazing, amazing thing to see. I have been in the movement for justice for at least almost half a century, since I was 17 years old, and I have seen mass upsurges before. I saw mass upsurges, that is, when I say mass upsurges, demonstrations across the country demanding justice for Rodney King when Rodney King was beaten by the Los Angeles police. I saw an upsurge in demonstrations all across the country when Abner Louima was tortured and sodomized in the Brooklyn police precinct. And of course, we all can remember the massive upsurge, the demonstrations that took place across the country and even around the world when Amadou Diallo was killed by police in New York. But I have to say, in the past month, at least in this very beginning period in the struggle for justice for George Floyd, that the demonstrations that I have seen have surpassed in number and in scope the mass upsurges around police brutality that I have witnessed previously. It is a wonderful thing to see people self-motivated and initiating actions on their own without the help from big organizations, and especially all the young people that have participated in these demonstrations. It is a wonderful thing, a magnificent thing to see so many people, so many young people standing in solidarity with those struggling for justice for George Floyd and saying in no unequivocal terms that Black Lives Matter. But here's the catch. We have to keep the pressure on. We have to keep the pressure on. And I know that many people have had demonstrations, but one demonstration is not enough. Even if the one demonstration takes place hundreds of times across the country. Derek Chauvin, the officer that killed George Floyd, has been charged, but he's not been convicted. It may be 6 months before the trial even begins, and then the trial itself could take another 6 months. And then there could be additional months if Floyd's lawyers decide to appeal, if in fact Floyd is found guilty. So this whole thing with George Floyd could take a long time. And keep in mind that with Breonna Taylor, no officers have yet been charged in her death. Several persons have been charged in the death of Ahmaud Arbery, but they have not gone to court yet. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the struggle against police brutality, the struggle for justice for George Floyd, these are protracted struggles. That is, they are long and difficult struggles. And we have to be creative and find ways to keep the pressure on during the course of the entire struggle to get justice. And when I say during the course of the entire struggle, I'm talking about until the day that Chauvin and the other officers that killed Floyd have actually been found guilty, sentenced, and sent to prison. And even then, we cannot say with certainty that it would be over, because I was involved in a case where the officers were charged and sentenced and went on trial and were found guilty, and the judge overturned the guilty verdicts. So everything is fluid in these police brutality cases. You know, you can't really take a sigh of relief until people, until those who brutalized people or murdered unjustly or violated people's constitutional rights are actually in jail. So what I would like to do during the rest of this broadcast is to take questions from you about the march and rally in Trenton. That is, the People's Organization for Progress is calling on all the people and organizations that have had rallies and marches against police brutality, demanding justice for George Floyd, all across the state of New Jersey. I'm asking all of you to join us in Trenton, New Jersey, the state capital, on Tuesday, June the 30th, 11 a.m., on the steps of the Statehouse Annex, 145 West State Street in Trenton, New Jersey. If you want justice for George Floyd and other victims of police brutality, you want an end to police brutality, then you should be at this rally with us. Now, I know one of the questions that people will have is, are there buses going down? At this point, the People's Organization for Progress decided not to take a bus because of concerns that people expressed about being in an enclosed environment in this period when we are trying to bring down the cases of COVID-19. So we're not taking a bus. Our organization is not bringing a bus to Trenton on June 30th. We are encouraging people to get on the train and come down. We are encouraging people to drive down. We're even encouraging people to organize car caravans to bring people down. There's an organization in Trenton called Surge. They have told us at the POP meeting on Thursday night that they were going to have cars, a few cars at the train station that could shuttle people over to the Statehouse Annex. It's actually a walkable distance. If it's a nice day and you get there early, you could walk over to the Statehouse Annex from the train station. I think it's about a 20-minute, maybe 30-minute walk from the train station to the Statehouse Annex. But no, we don't have buses. We're telling people to get there the best way you can. Come in cars, car caravans, take the train. I think there's a Trenton bus, a New Jersey Transit bus that runs from the train station over to West State Street. I don't know if it goes down West State or not, but it brings you pretty close to the State House and the State House Annex. So get there the best way you can. Walk, run, ride in a car, ride the train, ride public transportation, ride public transportation buses, but get there the best way you can. 11 o'clock sharp, Tuesday, June 30th, State House Annex, 145 West State Street in Trenton, New Jersey. Nikki, have any questions come in related to the march and rally or related to the issue of police brutality?
Actually, close enough. People would like to know how they join POP.
The easiest way to join the People's Organization for Progress is be at that demonstration on Tuesday. We will have POP members there that will have membership forms, membership brochures, and people can get those brochures and fill them out on the spot and join the People's Organization for Progress. That's the quickest way, is to be there on Tuesday. And then other than that, they can call the People's Organization for Progress at 973-801-0001, 973-801-0001. You can call and leave your mailing address, and the POP volunteer staff will send out the membership brochure and form to you. But if you really want to join quickly, meet us in Trenton, June 30th, 11 a.m., Statehouse Annex, 145 West State Street in Trenton, New Jersey.
Another question that came in. What do you personally think is the best piece of federal legislation that has been put forth recently to help end police brutality?
Well, I think the bill that was passed by the House at least begins to address the issue in a serious way. It does not contain all the reforms that we'd like. It does not put an end or cancel out qualified immunity, which is one of the ways that police officers avoid being prosecuted in police brutality cases. But it's a good beginning. It's a good beginning. So the bill that was recently passed by the House this week, people should look at that bill to get an idea on what types of reforms can be fought for. Now, generally, my stance toward all reforms is a positive one. You know, I mean, should there be bias training? Yes, there should be bias training. Should there be de-escalation training? Yes, there should be de-escalation training. Should there be transparency in police records? Yes, there should be. We support all of those things, but those things in and of themselves will not stop police brutality. We believe that police brutality will be stopped when it's clear to officers that if they engage in police brutality, if they murder unarmed civilians unjustly, if they violate people's constitutional rights, if they engage in racist policing tactics, if they unjustly arrest people, that they will be punished. When you look at the face of Derek Chauvin when he's strangling to death George Floyd, you do not see a look of concern or worry on Chauvin's face, because most officers know that 99% of police brutality cases do not end in conviction. And we have to change that. So what we must change are the laws at the federal level, state level, local level, policies at the federal level, state level, and local level, and a police culture. All of these things work together. They work in tandem to give police protection from prosecution in police brutality cases. We have to undo all of that legal infrastructure so that there's one system of justice. There must be one system of justice for those that have on a blue uniform and for those who do not have on a blue uniform. Is there another question?
Sorry, just getting off mute. What would a Larry Hamm end police brutality bill look like?
Well, a Larry Hamm police brutality bill would have some of the things I just mentioned. For instance, one thing that I would have that's not in current legislation or not in law, we have no national federal standard set by Congress on the use of force by police. A Larry Hamm bill would establish a national standard on the use of force by police. Number two, a Larry Hamm police brutality bill would mandate that all police in all police departments across the country have body cameras. But in addition to mandating body cameras, my bill would include a provision that it would make a prosecutable offense if officers turn off those body cameras while they're engaged in an act of police brutality or the violation of people's constitutional rights or an unjust arrest. We would also make it a prosecutable offense for officers to remove their badge so you can't see their badge numbers, or to cover up their badge numbers. A Larry Hamm police brutality bill would eliminate qualified immunity for police officers. If they unjustly murder, they must be punished just like everybody else for murder. Those are, oh, and the other thing a Larry Hamm police brutality bill would have, it would mandate and facilitate the establishment of police review boards in all cities, towns, and even villages that have police forces. Those are just some of the things that would be in a Larry Hamm police brutality bill.
Another question that came in, if there was a specific moment or time in your life that sticks out the most, the time that you were a victim of unneeded prejudice or police brutality?
Well, I have had some incidents with the police. I wouldn't call police brutality, but I certainly would have called it a violation of my constitutional rights and police harassment. You know, one time the police, for no clear reason, made me get out of my car for no stated reason. Said I had to park my car, get out of my car, and leave my car where it was and not return. I was like, so, you know, they had guns. So I got out the car, I left the car, I went around the corner, sat in a business for a while, left that business and came back and got in my car and drove it home. There was another time when I was out doing laundry. This is when I was still living in Newark, in the West Ward, in what's called the Vailsburg section. And, you know, some cops came up to my car and drew their guns on me and wanted to know what this bag was on the floor on the passenger side. It was my laundry. You know, this is a true story. I'm not making this up. So I've had a number of incidents. There were others, incidents like those that, you know, made me feel that I was being targeted simply because I was Black. There were many times that I was stopped by police on the turnpike and Route 280 that I felt that I was stopped only because I was Black, you know, and on and on and on. So there have been a number of personal incidents that I've had. I've been fortunate in that I haven't been shot by the police or put in a chokehold by the police or injured by the police. That has not happened to me, but I feel that I was targeted and treated in such a way that it really was a violation, you know, of my individual rights.
Actually, this is a great question since you've been protesting and as a grassroots organizer for more than half your life. Do you think that police are being kinder to protesters now because of the current climate or because they are afraid of pushback?
Let me say one more incident. I was asked, like, what was that incident that really, I guess, was an epiphany for me about the police? In December of 1974, I had come home from college I was a freshman at Princeton University where I went to school. I had come home for winter break and I was invited to speak on an issue by a community organization. I was asked to speak on a housing issue at a city council meeting in Newark. The president of the city council did not like what I said, and he literally had 2 police officers drag me from the podium and take me to jail simply because of what I said. For the record, I'll let people know the person who got me out of jail was attorney Junius Williams, the same Junius Williams that you read about from time. He was just on TV and in the newspapers the other day when the mayor announced that they were going to turn a particular precinct into a social services agency and a museum. They're going to take the police building and turn it into a social services agency and a museum. So Junius Williams was the one who got me out of jail. We went to court and the judge threw the case out of court, saying that it was a violation of my constitutional rights. Also, and I'll stop here with my personal examples, but also every year, the town of Montclair has a 4th of July parade. And the People's Organization for Progress, we march in the 4th of July parade. And whenever we march, we highlight whatever the issue of that year is. And we marched and we would chant like the year, say, the Iraq War. You know, the route is like about a 2.5-mile route, the parade route. We would chant the whole way, bring the troops home. And then the next year, you know, or several years after that, it was like we chant the whole way, Trump must go. So they actually had the police, the parade people told the police to go and get me out because I had a bullhorn. They were saying that I couldn't use a bullhorn in parade. I was like, how could I not use a bullhorn in parade when every float has electronically amplified sound equipment, when every band is louder than my little bullhorn that I was carrying could possibly be? But I had to go to court. And I was happy because a couple of hundred people came and packed the courtroom. And again, the judge threw the case out, saying that, you know, they're citing me and giving me a citation and taking me to court was in fact a violation of my constitutional rights. So now,
wasn't that all in the paper too?
Yes.
Did they give you a nickname? What was your nickname?
Bullhorn Larry. That's the nickname they gave me. And yes, that was in the newspapers, and they called me Bull. After that, I got the name Bullhorn Larry. But what was that question? I talked right over the question. What was the question again?
That's all right. Hold on 1 second. So with the years you've been as a protester and a grassroots organizer, you've seen how protesting has evolved. And do you think police have been kinder because of the current climate, or are they afraid that if they seem a little too tough, that there could be some kind of pushback from the public?
Well, I think in some places, the police have taken a step back. For instance, when we marched in Newark on May 30th, and according to the New York Times, 12,000 people came and marched with us. The police in Newark were very low key that day. First of all, they didn't have on any riot gear, and they didn't strike any provocative stands in any places, you know, that would lead to some type of incident. So, but historically, when I say historically, I'm saying like for the past 8 years, so to speak, the Newark police have been much more low key. And that has a lot to do with the fact that there was a federal, basically a federal intervention on the Newark police. The Newark Police Department is under a consent decree with an independent federal monitor, et cetera, et cetera. Also, the police historically have had, know about the People's Organization for Progress because we literally have had several hundred, in fact, I think several is not enough. I would say hundreds of police brutality demonstrations over the years. So our interaction with the police is very routine. But I would say in other places, for instance, in New Jersey, people just had almost 150 demonstrations. And in some of those places, the police, you know, escorted the marchers. In some places, the police marched with the marchers. In some places, the police took a knee to show some type of sympathy toward the marchers. But in other places, it's been exactly the opposite. In New York City, the police have been very provocative and aggressive and brutal. And they have used tear gas and other chemicals and rubber bullets. And this is one of the things I want to say, that one of the things I'm going to say at the March on Trenton is that these things should be banned, especially when it comes to protests. You know, people think of a rubber bullet and they think of like the kind of rubber ball used to play stickball with or something like that. Those rubber bullets are putting people's eyes out. You know, they're injuring people with life-threatening injuries. People have been killed by these rubber bullets. You know, I think these rubber bullets and this tear gas that's been outlawed by United Nations conventions, all of those things should be banned, especially at a minimum banned for use against protesters. But maybe maximally, they should be banned, period. They should be outlawed because they are still dangerous weapons and dangerous chemical agents.
And one last question we've got. What was the first police brutality case you Pop protested?
The first police brutality case that the People's Organization for Progress actually got really involved with, we weren't the primary organizers around this issue. I believe it was local groups from Teaneck and Inglewood together with the National Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network. The death of Philip Pinnell, who was shot and killed by Officer Gary Spath in Teaneck in 1990. But from 1990 until today, the People's Organization for Progress has been involved in many police brutality cases. The case that we're most associated with is that of Earl Faison, who was tortured to death. According to the United States Attorney for New Jersey, quote, Earl Faison died in a stairwell of torture. They tortured him to death, and it was a 4-year struggle. It took 4 years to get the police into jail. It took 2 years to get them convicted, but then it took another 2 years of appeals and protests and back and forth. But finally, they went to jail. And this was the first case in New Jersey history where 5 officers were simultaneously convicted in connection with a police brutality case. But they did not go to jail for murder. They killed the man, but they didn't go to jail for murder. Why? Because the county prosecutor of Essex County refused to even investigate the case, took at face value the tissue of lies that the police had concocted as to what had caused the death of Earl Faison. The family never believed it. I remember when Earl's his father and mother and stepmother came to the POP meeting to ask for our help. And we asked them what they thought. And they said from the beginning that they killed my son. They killed our son. And I remember Earl Williams said that the footprint of an officer was right in the forehead of Faison. And I remember how it got there when a woman who lived nearby, the police thought nobody was looking at them, but there was a woman who was peeking from behind her blinds. And she said that Faison was laying on the ground. The policeman backed all the way up down the alley to the fence and then ran up and kicked Faison's head like he was kicking a soccer ball. That's what the woman said. And then, you know, the FBI had to come to her several times to get her to testify. And the judge, I'm telling you, eyewitness account here, I was in the courtroom. The judge said, ma'am, why did you not come forward the first time that the FBI asked you to come and give testimony in this case? And that Latino woman who looked like she was 9 months pregnant, she said, "I was scared. I thought they would kill me like they killed him." That was on the witness stand. That's what that woman said. And we had many, many demonstrations in the Faison case, many, many demonstrations. The judge in the case, after 2 years, when the cops were convicted, the judge threw out the jury's conviction. I didn't even know a judge could do that. I thought when a jury made a decision, that's it. Judge said he was throwing out the jury conviction on a technicality. We protested, we demanded that the federal government, because the state government wouldn't prosecute. See, it's the state government that has to bring the murder charge. Murder charge has to be brought by a county prosecutor in New Jersey. And the county prosecutor is part of the state criminal justice system. So in the Faison case, when we saw that the county prosecutor was not going to investigate the case, we demanded that the federal government come in. The federal government came in and charged them with civil rights violations and with conspiracy for lying. And the jury was unanimous in their verdict on all counts. The unfortunate part about it was the 4 officers that were charged with the civil rights violations for beating Faison, they only got 3 years. And the man who actually killed, the officer that actually killed him, when he sprayed pepper spray directly into his mouth, causing Faison's lungs to collapse, he got less than 10 years. So they've all been out. They've been out. The last one came out probably around 2010, 2011. We still consider that case open. That's an open case as far as we're concerned. Why is it open? Because somebody should be convicted for murder. And when we go to Trenton on Tuesday, June the 30th, 11 a.m. at the Statehouse Annex, 145 West State Street in Trenton, New Jersey, when we go to Trenton on the 30th, we're going to demand that the Attorney General reopen the case of Earl Faison. In fact, there are several cases we want open. We want reopened the cases of Abdul Kamal, who was killed by Irvington police, Jerome Reed, who was killed by Bridgeton police, Kashad Ashford, who was killed by Lyndhurst police, Radaz Hearns, who was shot 7 times in the back by Trenton police. Those are some of the other cases that we want reopened in addition to the Faison case. Were there any more questions?
Just what you were saying about the names of the people who were murdered by police. A lot of these towns don't think they have issues. I stood in front of the Lyndhurst Town Hall where the young man was murdered, and the mayor came out and said, we don't have a problem. And that case was what, 2015? And they didn't release the footage till 2017?
Right. That's right. That's right. And it's horrendous. Two of the things I would recommend to our viewing audience tonight, the Star Ledger did an investigative series called The Force Report, investigating the issue of police brutality in the state of New Jersey. You know, a lot of the cases, in fact, almost all of the cases that are getting national attention are not New Jersey cases. Breonna Taylor was killed in Louisville, Kentucky. George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis. Ahmaud Arbery was killed in Brunswick, Georgia. But New Jersey has as many police brutality cases as any other state. It's just that for some reason in New Jersey, the police are able to keep a lot of these cases out of the papers. So the Star Ledger did an investigative series on police brutality in New Jersey called The Force Report. All you have to do is Google it on your phones. Google it, or, you know, look it up, search it out. And I recommend that everybody read that so you can get a real good understanding of the dimensions of police brutality in New Jersey. The second one is The Shield. The Shield was another investigative report. It was done by the Asbury Park Press. You know, and Nikki, if possible, we should see if we could post these on the Hamm for Senate Facebook page, because reading both of these reports will give people a real understanding. It's not just Louisville, Minneapolis, Brunswick, Georgia, Charlotte, North Carolina, New York City, Los Angeles. It's not just these places. New Jersey, I'm telling you, has as many police brutality cases as any other state. In the past 10 years, local police forces have had to settle over $200 million in police brutality case settlements. So we have a problem here in New Jersey.
And just so everyone who's watching is aware, today on Facebook and Twitter, we did post the ACLU report and the FBI report on the city of Newark.
Excellent.
And so I'll make sure we also post the Force report and the Shield report. And I actually have a question for you. One of the times you spoke for me in Lyndhurst, you told a story about how you came and protested the KKK in Lyndhurst within my lifetime. And I think, you know, your history and explaining where the police force, you know, comes from. And if I could ask you again, just to tell that story, because I think there's a lot of new people watching, and I think it's important they know the history of where police come from.
Right. Well, to make it short, modern police forces as we know them today evolved from the slave patrols in the colonial era in this country, even before there was a United States of America, when we were still the 13 colonies. Almost from the time that slaves were brought here in force, in mass, slave patrols were formed because slaves were always running away. So the slave patrol would hunt down runaway slaves. And then when there were larger numbers of slaves, the slaves would revolt. And they had to have an armed body of men to put down these revolts. And so modern police forces, as we know them, emerged from slave patrols, not just in the South, but in the North. I actually heard the commissioner some years ago, the commissioner of the New York City Police Department, say himself that the police in New York City evolved from the slave patrols that were in New Amsterdam, because that's what New York was in the colonial era. It wasn't New York yet. It was a Dutch colony, just like Jersey initially was a Dutch colony. But the British and the Dutch had a war, and the British won, and they took the Dutch colonies. So New Amsterdam, Amsterdam is in Holland, or the Netherlands, as we say. New Amsterdam became New York. York is in England. So it became New York. The whole Northeast is called what? New England, because England either established colonies or took over colonies from other colonial powers in that era. So modern police forces evolved from the slave patrols. And then the other thing to understand, the other important thing to note is that, you know, there's a close relationship, you know, between the Ku Klux Klan and law enforcement. You know, many judges, sheriffs, police people belong to Klan organizations in their towns and in their cities. So they took off the blue uniform by day and put on the white uniform of the night rider terrorists at night. Are there any other questions? That's it?
Nope, that was it.
Okay, let's wind it up. Let's have a short program for tonight. The main purpose for this broadcast tonight was to once again inform you that we are having a March for Justice for George Floyd and all victims of police brutality on Tuesday, June the 30th, 11 o'clock a.m., assembling on the steps of the Statehouse Annex, 145 West State Street in Trenton, New Jersey. Get there any way you can. by bus, that is public transportation, by train, by car, on bicycles, motorcycles, walking, running, however you can get there. I'm asking all the people that have been in all the marches that we have had over the last month for George Floyd, and there have been over 150, and they're still going. Tomorrow, people in Middletown are marching, and I wanted to march with them, but unfortunately, you know, I have two campaign events that conflict with the time of their march and their rally. And unfortunately, I can't be with them. But if you're watching this broadcast and you live in or near Middletown, I urge you to go out and support the march and rally that they're having in Middletown tomorrow. And I think it's going to start at 3 o'clock. But we want everybody, if you've been in a George Floyd march, be in Trenton. And I'm asking everybody, I know that there are probably several hundred people watching this broadcast. I need you to help spread the word. Let's make Trenton a significant protest. Let's get significant numbers of people there. I'm appealing to everyone that's watching this to call, to post on social media, to spread by word of mouth the information about this protest on Tuesday. If you know leaders of people that have organized demonstrations, reach out to those people and ask them to be there. And if you have any questions about this protest on Tuesday, June 30th, 11 a.m. at the Statehouse Annex, 145 West State Street in Trenton, if you have any questions, please call 973-801-0001, 973-801-0001. That's the number for the People's Organization for Progress, who has called this demonstration in Trenton on Tuesday. Is there anything else I need to mention? Nikki?
Sorry, I was just making sure those articles were posted. Someone beat me to it on Twitter.
Okay.
So I want to make sure we had those articles. Reminder that we are going to be having another call on Monday.
Yes, we're going to have, thank you. We're going to have another call. We're going to have updates because I'm constantly talking to the state police and to the local police in Trenton, and letting them know I reached out to the local police and to the state. And no one asked this question, but I'm going to answer it even though you haven't asked it. Yes, I did file for a permit for this march. I went down last week to the state building where the administration is working out of while the State House is closed for rehabilitation. I went and filled out the form for a permit. So the state police are aware that we're having this rally, and I plan to pick up the permit either Monday when I go to Trenton, or if I don't actually get to Trenton, I'll come into Trenton early on Tuesday morning and pick up the permit. So this is a permitted event. I went to get the permit. Now I want to say this too, and it's important. We want, first of all, I don't use the term peaceful protest because the whole purpose of a protest is to disturb the peace. You know, we're going to march to stop business as usual and to draw attention to injustice. But what I do not want to see our protests descend into is activity of vandalism and violence. We don't want any vandalism. If you're coming there to vandalize, don't come. Please stay away. If you need to do that on your own time, in your own space, in your own energy. I only want people with us on Tuesday who are determined that the narrative of what we do in Trenton on Tuesday will be that hundreds gathered to demand justice for George Floyd the victims of police brutality in New Jersey and the victims of police brutality around the country, and demanded reforms in policing in New Jersey. That's what the headline should be. The headline should not be people came to Trenton, it was chaos, it descended into vandalism and violence. We don't want violence and we don't want vandalism. We want to have a strong action, a loud action, a gathering that will stop business as usual, but we want to have discipline so that the next day the newspapers will have an account of what we did, an account that clearly is in the spirit of justice, and that our message was not cleared or not blurred or not bloodied because someone could not be disciplined and did something that would draw attention away from what it is we're trying to do. You know, I understand that everybody doesn't see it the way Larry Hamm sees it, but organize, if you want to come there and vandalize and hurt somebody, then go have your own demonstration somewhere else. Don't be with us. You know, let us stand strong, stand tall, be forceful, disrupt business as usual, but let us at the same time be disciplined so no one can steal the narrative from us. There are many people who would like us to come to Trenton and not get out our message that policing must be transformed in America. Because that's why we're marching. We're marching because we want to see policing literally deconstructed and reconstructed in America so that we can end police brutality, end the violation of people's constitutional rights, end the unjust murder of people, end racist policing tactics, end unjust arrests and incarceration. That's why we're coming to Trenton. So let's all come, be strong, be powerful, and be disciplined. A disciplined, strong force will be more feared than a force that brings with it chaos and destruction. So brothers and sisters, I thank you for giving me a few minutes tonight. And if you have any questions, please give us a call. I thank Nikki for producing this segment tonight. And thank you for all the segments. You know I'm a pest. I ask things at the last minute, but Nikki always says yes. So thank you, Nikki. And I especially hope that those of you who live in Trenton, and I know there's some people watching that live in Trenton, I hope that you'll do all that you can to help get the Trenton people out on Tuesday to the demonstration. Thank you very much. And good night and power to the people.